Welcome everyone to this week's session. Today we will be looking at secure ways of supporting remote workers. We're talking about secure remote control, support, and administration, mostly for Windows environments, but we can also help you out on some of your other machines as well. Just as a little intro to today's webinar, we're just going to kind of frame the conversation and just say, in general, what the problem is with remote control solutions and why there is a need for a better solution like Goverlan. And to do that, I'm just going to pull up my browser here, and just in preparation, I did 3 quick searches. And these were the 3 quick searches were just searching at the 3 most commonly used remote support solutions in the enterprise today. Things like GoToMyPC, LogMeIn, and Teamviewer. I think everybody on the call is very familiar with all 3 of these solutions. But all 3 of them have kind of the same, almost like weakness, and that's that they're cloud-hosted solutions with passwords stored on site that give it's a huge convenience. You gain access to all of your remote machines, but what are you giving up on the other end? What are you risking? What kind of risk are you bringing into your enterprise by using one of these solutions? And so just to kind of get at a general idea, let's just search for each one of them and add the word compromised and see what news stories come up. And all 3 of them are scary in that they all have very recent news stories about them being compromised. I mean, if you look at TeamViewer, we all know about those talks of hacks, but finally towards the beginning of June, they came out and said that the number of abused accounts is significant. When you have millions of customers, significant, probably a pretty big number. So all of these solutions, these cloud-hosted remote control solutions, all kind of have the same problem, and that's that if I want to gain access to one of their customers, I can probably try and attempt to attack, through the products that they use. And so that's why we've introduced Goverlan and Goverlan V9. So Goverlan V9 brings you that same functionality as you would get with a TeamViewer, LogMeIn, GoToMyPC, but does it with a little bit better sense of the security of the enterprise needs, the needs of the secure enterprise. And I'm going to demonstrate that first and just talk to you about secure remote control to kind of introduce this, and then we'll talk about administration and some other support. So the real, I guess, value that a TeamViewer, LogMeIn, or GoToMyPC brings is just the convenience of being able to remote control web-based machines that are not within your environment. Because Goverlan, for machines that are within your environment, I mean, you have complete access to. If they're pingable and we can authenticate and all those security protocols are in place, you can gain unattended access to them. But until recently, these web-based machines were kind of a trickier area for us. We would have to have the user initiate a support session or something like that. Goverlan V9 allows unattended access to web-based machines, and it does it without compromising on security. By providing a secure software application for you to stand up in your environment, it's entirely secured, hosted, and maintained by you, the Goverlan customer. And then that is what you use to make connections to remote machines. At no point are you pinging off of a resource at the Goverlan location. There's no shared resources across all of our customers that are helping establish these connections. Everything is hosted, maintained, and secured by each one of those customers with enterprise security in mind. That's kind of the area where Goverlan comes from, is support tools for the security conscious organization. So I'm going to start with just showing you, a typical use case for remote control, and that's a user needs assistance. So we're going to start by just hitting the connect button, and here I know the user's name, so I'm going to search for the user by name, and this is a Goverlan feature called Fast Connect, where I can search for a user by name. We integrate with Active Directory, and then when I set focus on the user that needs help, we'll query for where this user has active Windows sessions. This can include a traditional desktop session, a Citrix or RDP session, TS sessions, anything like that, any type of Windows session. And then Goverlan is going to present me with the active sessions that this user has. In this case, it's 2 different machines. I can choose to open one of them, or I can just say, you know what, I'm not sure which machine this user needs help on. I'm going to open both of them. So now I have 2 remote control sessions. All communication between me and this remote machine is encrypted in both directions, and absolutely nothing sent in plain text. Very secure, never pinging off of a centralized kind of server at a Goverlan location. It's each one of our customers can maintain and deploy these features themselves. Once I'm in a remote control session, we're in this case, because these machines are within the same environment, we're using peer-to-peer communication, and absolutely everything is encrypted in both directions, nothing sent in plain text. There are users logged in, and we know Aaron's logged into both of these machines, but Goverlan sits at a lower layer than the user themselves. It's called session 0. This allows me to do things like right-click on an app and run as administrator and fully interact with these UAC prompts that come up, even if they're at their most highest setting. This way I can fully support this user that needs help. On top of that, because we're sitting in what's called session 0, I can go a step further and actually log off this user and log in as a different user, maintaining connection to this machine the whole time. Sometimes we flash for a second, but here we can see we're just dropped back to the start screen, and I can log in as the same user, log in as a different user. Now, all this functionality is great, but we know it exists for machines that are on the same LAN. But what about these web-based machines? What about machines that I can't authenticate using just native Windows, and I need something to make that bridge for me so that I can gain access to these web-based machines? And that's where we introduce what's called Goverlan Reach. Now, to enable this functionality, you have a little bit of configuration to do, and I'll show you that first. Basically, you need to stand up the Goverlan Central Server, which is just a little software application. It'll install on any Windows Server 2008 or greater. And then once you deploy it, you need to configure Reach. Reach is very easily configured. It takes exposing a public-facing IP address and a port, routing traffic to that IP address and port to the machine that's hosting this Goverlan Central Server. So in this case, it's this demo DC machine. So basically, any traffic that comes into this address gets routed to this demo DC machine. And the traffic that's coming in is what's called reach registrations. It's basically machines that have agents installed so that I have permission to remote control them. They're registering with the Goverlan Central Server to say, I'm here, I exist, and this is where you can find me. And if we go on View Nodes, we can see we have a couple of reach registry. We have a couple of machines that are registered with the Goverlan Central Server. Now I'm going to show you making a connection to one of these machines, and it's really, really simple. All of your Reach machines, all of your web-based machines show up in Goverlan Reach. I can also search for a machine. But here we're going to demonstrate against my wife's home machine. She was nice enough to let us borrow it for this demo. And in this case, we have the agent permanently installed on that machine, and I know I am a local admin on that machine. And because I can authenticate against that machine using the Goverlan Reach communication, I'm able to gain unattended access to this web-based machine. Exactly the same functionality as you would get in a LogMeIn, Go to My PC, or Teamviewer, but again, never using a shared cloud-hosted resource. So here I'm just going to double-click on it, and we're going to hit Connect. And it's just going to verify and then connect me, and we can customize this banner. And now I'm indeed in a remote control session with this machine. Now this is only capable because, again, I am a local admin. And I'll just show you, like, by default, it's going. We're going to copy. We're going to use the credentials of the person sitting behind the console, but in this case, because my credentials won't work, we've stored an alternate credential in the credentialing manager. Now, if I remove the local admin credentials to my wife's machine, I can no longer gain unattended access to it. Right? Now, it's going to prompt me for credentials because we're using native Windows authentication to verify that you have access to this remote machine. And then this way it enables us to keep that Windows security in place and make sure we're compliant, make sure that we have the right permissions, make sure this product's not falling into the wrong hands and being abused. Just a quick question here. Can you use a reach machine to initiate the Goverlan connection back to the enterprise? And that's a great question, and I'll demonstrate that in just a moment. Here I'm just going to type in, the answer to that is yes, we can do something, and we basically, you can drop an icon on the user's desktop, they double click on that icon and it generates a session ID. It's not going to actually call back to the text on this side, but if they have another way of communicating with the text, they just pass the session ID back, and I'll show you that just about 1 second. So here I'm going to re-enter those local admin credentials, and as soon as they're entered, again, they're going to be saved, but now I again have regained unattended access to this web-based machine. Now, to expand on the question, so here's the reason why I have unattended access is because I've permanently installed the Goverlan agent. When the agent's permanently installed, it comes with these reach settings that tell this machine how to communicate with Goverlan when it leaves the environment. So whenever a machine is within your environment, and we can authenticate just using Windows and peer-to-peer, we're going to use that peer-to-peer communication, and it's not going to go through your reach server. As soon as that machine leaves and we have this internet in the way of us doing this peer-to-peer communication, the machine will automatically register with the reach server and then give you that ability to access it. Now, if a machine is, let's say, not in your environment, it's out there in the wild, you can generate an on-demand reach and send the agent out on demand. You can enable a permanent install mode, which will allow the end user to permanently install that machine. Then that machine will become permanently registered. Or I can do a session-based one, and I'll just generate an email here just to show you what it looks like. You send this email out to an end user. The end user clicks this link, the icon, downloads the little Goverlan agent, and you can house the agent anywhere you want. You can really configure this any way you want. It's really completely customizable. And then once the agent is downloaded here on the end user side, they're just going to run that, and it's going to generate a 9-digit number that the end user can read back to the operator when they start a support session. So now, the end user reads this back to the operator. The operator is then able to grab mouse and keyboard control. And then this way, this is accessible for a user no matter where they are, even if they're on a machine that has never been in your environment, not on the same domain, whatever it is. Any Windows machine you can control with reach as long as it has internet access. Once your end user hits cancel on here, they're presented with a choice to create a shortcut on their desktop or remove the support agent. If they create a shortcut on their desktop, Ken, this is kind of what you were asking, where they can now jump back in here, click that icon on their desktop, and generate a new reach session ID. So Ken is asking if the administrator is traveling with a laptop, can they use the laptop with Goverlan installed to connect back to a machine inside the enterprise with reach? And the answer to that is no, right? Because this is I mean, it's not a straightforward no. If you're connected via VPN, it's as if you're inside, and then the full capabilities are there. But this product is, again, leaning more towards the secure side, so we want to make sure that that the machine you're operating, that you're operating from, also has the necessary credentials. So that machine needs to be able to communicate with the Goverlan Reach server in order to establish these connections. So you can, if you're traveling with your laptop and you're connected to VPN, again, you're fully functional, and there's anything you can do. But for you, the admin, you do need to have direct communication to the Goverlan Central server. So we looked at a couple of different scenarios for remote control, and showed you how Goverlan has a little bit more of a secure way of giving you this unattended access to web-based machines. And we're doing that, again, by providing this software application for you to house at your location, you to secure at your location, and then, you know, you're not using a shared cloud resource that, you know, not only has potential for hacks and abuse, but I mean, literally, you know, the three big ones have all been abused within the past couple of months. So just the problem is there. So I think it's good that there are, you know, not just Goverlan, but a few other choices and solutions for secure remote control that's using Windows authentication, that's making sure, you know, you can't, you know, it's not going to get abused or hacked. And again, if a laptop is connected to VPN on the admin side, the product's fully functional no matter where they are. So we do need that VPN connection on the admin side. I'm going to show you just a couple of the other features within Goverlan Remote Control, and then we're going to move our way to support and administration. And so you know, some of the other features here in Goverlan Remote Control v9, which, by the way, is a couple of weeks away from general release. This isn't a public beta, so if anybody wants to try this, you're more than welcome to. You can gain access to it by downloading a trial and logging into the My Goverlan portal. And we can discuss that if anybody has questions on that. So some other features here in Goverlan v9. Chat and send messages with the end user. I can talk to the end user, chat with them back and forth. I can disable client controls if I'm supporting an annoying end user that moves the mouse and keyboard around on me. I can put them in an admin mode, which blanks out the screen, or observe only mode, which lets me watch what's going on, but my mouse and keyboard movement won't affect the end user. And by the way, even for these web-based machines, you have that session 0 access again. So I know some of the other remote control solutions out there have some issues with web-based machines and UAC prompts. And we tested this. Even if we turn UAC up to its highest level, we can still fully interact with the prompts without an issue. Some other tools, a task manager, file manager, command prompt. The kind of neat thing about these tools, and this is going to segue into our support discussion, is that these are all behind the scenes tools. So you can see that this is not part of the remote control session and actually not visible to the end user at all. And why that's important is because Goverlan offers the ability to support users behind the scenes or behind the screen. Sorry, I'm just trying to adjust this so we can see both at once. Behind the scenes or behind the screen, so that I don't have to interrupt my end users when I'm providing support here. So here I'm just going to expand this out. So we have the screen on that side, and they can't see this task manager, right? So if I really wanted to offer next level support for my end users, I might want to think about Goverlan administration and diagnostics, which is the next thing we're going to look at. And it gives you a ton of functionality without leaning on remote control so much. So kind of the world of support was originally just all desk side visits, and I was actually helping a customer this week where their organization still relies on all desk side visits as a cultural thing, and they were just kind of moving towards using remote control tools. So remote control came around, and that was great. We didn't have to run around from desk to desk anymore helping users, but it's still a disruptive form of support. I now, I'm in this machine. I've taken over control of it. I've had to coordinate a time with an end user probably. So really not kind of the best form of support. It would be really great if we could do things behind the scenes. So like here, again, the user on this end doesn't see any of this stuff, but just as an example, I can launch Notepad because I have access to this behind the scenes task manager, right? So if I launch notepad.exe, you can see that it now pops up for that user, even though they saw none of me, they didn't see any of the actions involved in launching that task. So with that, we're going to move to Goverlan administration and diagnostics and talk a little bit about remote support without using remote control. So here's the full Goverlan suite. And just like we did before, we're going to start by searching for a user here. And we're going to search for that same user, Aaron. And when we set focus on that user, it navigates through Active Directory and drops us into the OU where Aaron's contained. Now from here, we have a whole bunch of stuff we can do, and we're going to be talking about administration and support at kind of the same time because this tool really handles both very nicely. So, maybe some Active Directory administration, some general stuff. This lies in kind of both categories. Unlocking accounts, changing passwords, managing user groups, and Goverlan completely integrates with Active Directory. So if this user needed more permissions, I can type in a partial group name and find matches. Move through to account statistics and even see a user login history report. We're using this user login history report to populate that capability of finding this user sessions in real time. And this is a huge advantage to Goverlan and a huge differentiator in the product, because having worked in desktop support, I know that how common the conversation of what machine are you using right now is. I mean, it's just like a common theme in support, right? Tell me which machine you're using. This way I can start to remote control you. I can start to attempt to support you. So Goverlan attempts to circumvent that conversation by mapping you to this user's active sessions in real time. And then you can expose our Goverlan tool set. So I'm not going to go through each one of these tools because we should all be very familiar with what we see here. The reason is because these are all native Windows tools. It's mapping a printer, mapping a drive, deploying software, managing Windows updates, the device manager, all native Windows look and feel. The difference is that this is all behind the scenes management. So here's that same task manager where I showed you we can launch a task on a remote machine, but we can do a whole lot more. We can map printers, we can map drives, we can deploy software, and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. So if we like, we can do this kind of side by side again, if I can organize this in a way that makes sense. I know there's keyboard shortcuts for this, but I seem to have forgotten what they are. Okay, here we go. So here we have this vPro machine, and maybe we're used to, when a user needs help, to navigating to printers and scanners and adding and removing printers from here and leaning on remote control. But if we use Goverlan administration and diagnostics, all of that same information is available behind the scenes. So maybe this printer is kind of on the fritz and I want to delete the printer and re-add it. So I'm just going to go and delete printer, and again, I don't need this remote control session, but you can saw that got deleted. And then maybe I need to add a local printer for this user. And again, everything is happening behind the scenes in real time and really completely seamlessly. You can see as I move through here, I can decide which drivers to install, everything else, and you can see that the printer just pops up for the end user. And this really lets us change the way we offer support. It lets us get rid of remote control unless it's absolutely necessary and start working behind the scenes, start just making our environment happy and productive and not getting in the way of users. Again, not going to go through all these tools, but they're all available to you. And if you're trying Goverlan, the trial is fully functional. Anything I'm showing in this demo, you can absolutely do yourself. And then I think you should have a good idea of how we can really change support. Now we can search for users, find their logged in sessions, and fix problems without leaning on remote control first. Use it as a last resort. So maybe all this user needed was a printer or a drive map, or maybe they needed a piece of software deployed. All of that is accessible to you. You can do it all. You can do it in real time, and again, without needing remote control. So what if all of this is not quite enough? One of the bullet points in the webinar invite was automating it no matter what it is, right? So, maybe I don't want to spend all this time clicking through printers manually and deploying software. Maybe I have like some common themes in support that constantly keep coming up, and I want to just make those issues go away or automate them as much as possible. And that's where Goverlan Custom Actions comes in. Goverlan Custom Actions lets me sequence events and fire them off in an order. It lets me do a whole lot more than that, but we'll start with a sequence of events. So here at Goverlan, we use Salesforce for Outlook, which is an Outlook plugin that synchronizes our emails with our CRM. Like every other Outlook plugin, it patches probably twice a week, and it's kind of a pain in the neck. And so, not twice a week, but maybe every other week. And part of the issues with it is when we deploy a patch, we have to make sure Outlook is closed. We have to make sure the plugin is closed. Only then can we deploy the plugin. And if we don't restart the plugin, sales folks like myself just think Outlook is broken because it looks different. So it really cuts down on support calls if we just, do all 4 of those things. And so you can see here, instead of visiting the machine and performing one at a time, I've just kind of sequenced them all in an order. So the first one is I've terminated a process. I've come in here to execute computer actions, and I can sequence any one of these, and I come down to terminate a process, and I just said terminate Outlook. Now the second one, I've closed the Salesforce plugin. Again, terminated a process. Then I'm just deploying a piece of software. And again, we include our own little software deployment tool that lets you deploy MSI and EXEs. MSIs are always deployed silently. EXEs, you can drop in whatever argument strings you find on the vendor site for silent install. And then I'm starting a process again by relaunching the plugin. And here I've just kind of, not scripted, but at least automated the deployment of the Salesforce plugin and included all the different steps I need to take. Goverlan custom actions can also report on literally anything you can think of. And just as a goofy example here, we're going to open up this report that brings in all this machine's identity information, its OS info like make, manufacturer, serial number, the IE version, the architecture, all the deployed software on this machine with product codes and the install date, and then maybe a user login history report. And we can kind of just put all that together. Now it's accessible to run on any machine. I can right-click on it, go to custom actions, and choose the report I want to run. Let's just run it again against this one just to mix it up a bit. And we're just going to run our software inventory report. It's going to go and gather all this information for us in real time, kind of put it together. We chose this HTML report, so we see all of this machine's identity information, all of its OS info, all the deployed software with product codes, and then install date, and then a user login history. And I can run this again against any machine. Really, really simple to put together. It gives me really, really powerful reporting. Now, just to switch gears here for 1 second, I want to talk about just some administration stuff. So maybe I'm doing, aside from support, I'm tasked with managing my environment's Active Directory infrastructure. And so instead of having to switch tools to go from desktop support to environment management to whatever else, we kind of consolidated everything into this one console. So here, this employee, Zach, today happens to be, or yesterday was his last day, and we have to go through our employee termination checklist. We have to go through the policies and make sure we do everything we need to do to terminate this employee. They're no longer employed. So most organizations I talk to have a checklist that they work off of that says, don't forget to deactivate the user's account and remove group memberships and generate a login history report and do whatever else you need to do, which could be quite a bit of work and quite a bit of clicking around. So here what we've done is we built it out and said, this is what it looks like when our organization terminates an employee. These are the steps that we want to have happen, and this is how we want it to happen every single time. And kind of the sky's the limit here. We have a really simple example here just for the sake of the demo, but organizations I talk to have everything from exporting a user's mailbox as a PSD to deleting files and folders or moving files and folders around for the new user, like really almost anything you can think of. But here we're going to run a group membership report. And again, everything is pretty simple. You come in here, report on user property, groups, and you just want the NT account name of all the groups. We're going to log the user off all their current sessions, generate a login history report, do all of our Active Directory stuff. And here the big advantage is that we can make sure that the stuff that we want to see happen happens every time. And then remove group memberships. And so we're going to go ahead and terminate Zach right now. And you can see that it's just going to run through each one of those steps in real time. It says that it was executed successfully. Our reports pop open for us. Everything kind of happened the way it should. When we refresh, Zach is gone. And that's because that last step was to move Zach to the terminated users OU. Now, I may have accidentally terminated Zach, Or I may have a whole bunch of users that I need to provision in one day, and I don't want to sit there in Active Directory users and computers clicking through each one of these custom actions and kind of clicking through each user in Active Directory and kind of putting this all together. And so what I can do is build out provisioning templates. I can decide however I want these templates to look like. How do I want to provision an IT user? Or how do I want to provision a sales user? What are the things I want to have happen differently between them? It's different group memberships. It's maybe some different AD account info. And really, whatever you want to do, you can kind of customize. And so when we run this, we'll just re-provision Zach. And this is the, oops, I accidentally terminated someone. And here we go. And we're going to refresh. And Zach is right back to where he was. Totally re-provisioned, all good, and all set again. Just a couple of questions here, and we will continue. So, Ken is asking, can I grab emails to PSD from Office 365? And it's a good question. From everything I've read, because I've been researching it a bit, the answer is yes. There's a little bit of credentialing that you have to work out using PowerShell and to execute a PowerShell script against your Exchange server in Office 365. I did have something close at one point, and then it kind of got pushed to the back burner, but it's something I can look at again, because we were talking to this PowerShell genius out there, and he was helping me with that exact thing. So the short answer is yes, but the credentialing has to be worked out. And Stuart's asking, is there a log of these custom actions? Where are they maintained? So all of these are kind of built by you. So Goverlan's a framework that you can decide how you want things to happen, what you want them to do, everything like that. So these custom actions are actually saved locally on your machine, but you can share them. So there's a lot of collaboration tools. So I can say, like, you know what, this is happening exactly the way I want it. I can share it with other users, and we have different share levels. Like if you build something that works exactly the way you want it and you want it to happen that same way every time, you can enforce it on your team, which creates a read-only version. You can share with the team, or you can make available to the team, which puts it in a repository. So all these are they're built and configured by you. They're maintained by you. Absolutely nothing comes canned. The resource we give you to kind of put all this together are, first of all, these Friday demos, which really helped quite a few of our users, or at least I hope they do. But the other resource we give you are on our support site is user guides, tutorials, and a video library. So, for example, the employee termination one I showed you is very well documented in here. If you just search for, I think, terminate, yep, how to terminate an employee with one click. It's going to go through a whole bunch of the different steps I went through step by step, and then this way you can reproduce these in your own environment. So just continuing here, we went through a couple of examples, and I think we really showed that you can literally automate almost anything. And so now I want to talk a little bit about the administration. So when we talk about control, obviously we're talking about remote control. When we talk about administration, we're talking about managing our infrastructure, and support is more of, I need to help users and I don't want to lean on remote control as much, just to define some of the stuff, I guess, in Goverlan terms. So here is administration. Here's where I want to make sure my environment is always up to a certain standard. I want to make sure that I'm not, this is me heading off inbound support tickets. And so there's a whole bunch of things I can do, and Goverlan can literally automate almost anything you can think of. So here we're going to build some custom actions, or I'm going to show you some custom actions that let me find things in my environment and take corrective action. And so this is our way of, aside from first call resolution, by finding users and finding their active sessions and giving you powerful tools to support those users, we can also get to, let's not generate help desk tickets by heading off problems before they're issues. So here, I may have a mandate that says, I want you to make sure every single machine in your environment has Adobe Reader installed. And that's just a little kind of goofy instance, but it may be something more serious. I talked to a user recently who had to make sure this little compliance process was running on all of their machines at all times. And this is a very simple way of doing it. So what we're going to do here is we're just giving this a name so far, and it's just missing Adobe. And now we're targeting groups of users, computers, or groups, or multiples of users, computers, or groups. In this case, we targeted a whole OU of machines or demo workstations. And you can see we can mix and match a container, a domain, an AD site, IP range, input file, individual objects, and this is entirely AD integrated if you're working in an Active Directory environment. I can combine that with the same wizard we saw before. So in this case, it's the same wizard, the same 3 options to report on computer properties, set computer properties, or execute actions. Here, I'm trying to find machines that are missing Adobe because, again, my mandate is to make sure Adobe is always installed. So I'm going to report on a computer property. I'm just going to bring in the computer name for any machine, and I've set a condition down below. And my condition is that software products, product name doesn't contain Adobe Reader. So very simple. I'm returning, this is my action, and that's to return computer name where the machine doesn't have Adobe Reader installed, right? So pretty simple. I'm just going to run this, and I'm going to see what we get. So we're right here, we're going to scan an OU of machines, find machines that don't have Adobe Reader. So you can see it moves through this OU pretty quickly, and it found me 2 different machines. Neither one of these have Adobe Reader installed. So now I know where I have to go and do the work. I know that I have to go and install Adobe Reader. So I'm going to right-click on this. I'm going to go to Properties, and I'm going to say, you know what? I don't need this report because I know what I need to do. I need to just install Adobe Reader, right? So I'm just going to come down to Software Products, install a software product, and I'm going to point it at that install package that I built. Okay, so now what's going to happen the next time this runs is it's going to find any machine that doesn't have Adobe Reader installed, and instead of notifying me, it's just going to fix the problem. Now, I can sequence all different of these events. So I can say, you know what, aside from machines that are missing Adobe Reader, I want to find machines that have Dropbox installed. Right, because I'm mandated to make sure that even though I have some users that are local admins and they can install software, I'm supposed to make sure that non-compliant software never works, never gets installed. So here I switch this around, and in this case I'm finding machines that contain a software products of Dropbox, and I'm notifying the end user. I'm saying you installed unapproved software, and we know, right? I can go a step further. I don't even have to notify the end user. I can run a report, or I can uninstall the software, or I can terminate the process. So really the sky's the limit in terms of the behavior I want to have happen from there. And I can continue stringing these on one after another so that I have a machine. I'm first searching for machines that are missing Adobe, then I'm searching for machines that have Dropbox, then I'm searching for machines that aren't running a specific process and restarting it automatically. And then before you know it, I've kind of put together all of my requirements, and then all that happens is this simply runs once a day at 9 a.m. and it fixes my environment for me. And this is us getting very proactive and using really powerful tools. And the nice thing about Goverlan is that it's not canned tools. We're not saying this is the 3 ways you can do this, or this is the 1 way you can terminate a user. It's really completely up to you. We just give you the power, and then you piece it together however you want. I'm going to go through one other example here, and then we'll open it up to some more questions. So we're just going to look at disk space. This is a very common thing for us to want to monitor against servers, against computers. So, you know, disk space is just, it's super common, right? So, and people still pay for hard disk monitors, which surprises me because there's a ton of free tools out there. And again, if you have a Goverlan license, you can do a whole lot more than just monitor for hard disk space. And I'm going to show you that now. Again, we're targeting an OU of machines. And here we're bringing in the computer name, the device name, and available space as a %. And we're notifying ourselves when the C drive has less than 90%. And obviously I did less than 90 because we're in a lab and I didn't have any machines that had that were running out of hard disk space. These are unused machines. Aside from just notifying myself with a report, I've also generated an email that's going to get sent to me. right? And in this email, the cool thing about Goverlan is we have the ability to use dynamic values. So I can send myself an email with the exact computer name is running out of hard disk space, and I can say this is the device and this is the current available space as a %, and I can include all other details about what triggered this alert. If I hit the insert key, it's going to open up literally anything about this machine that I can insert into my alert. And this way I'm getting very detailed information about the problem that happened. And again, you build this out once and then it's available to you, will really help quite a bit. So here's my email. It's set up to alert me, and we're just going to go and run this one, and we're going to scan through, again, an OU of machines, and we're going to find machines that are low on hard disk space and see what happens. So here we only returned one machine that has 88% space available, and my email did just come in, so I'm going to drag that over. I think I just have to close this out. And so here's my detailed alert. You can see that, alert, this demo vPro machine is running out of hard disk space. The device name is the C. It only has 88% space, so this is pretty important. And it says Goverlan will attempt to free some space so you can finish lunch. Make sure you check out this machine later. And I obviously added in that message. And the reason why I added that is because we don't have to run back from lunch every time an alert goes off, because we have powerful automation tools. And we also know what we as administrators would do when a machine's running out of hard disk space, right? I know what I might do is I might go and do some file and directory actions, like clear out the temp files, or I might have a neat little PowerShell script that I can fire off that's going to go and save me from running back from lunch. And all of that can be automated. And again, you can literally automate anything. You define the conditions on when you want this, when you want these events to happen, and then you just set on what, and then you just piece together what you want to have happen whenever those conditions are met. And that takes us kind of towards the end of our demo here. Obviously we could talk about scope actions and for hours and hours on end, because this is such a powerful automation tool. The thing that I left out was kind of the trivial stuff, which is, I have an environment and I need to install software on all of my machines. Well, it's there for you. Or I have an environment and I need to map a printer on 10 machines at once. It's there for you. So, the trivial stuff is easy. So I kind of, shifted towards the stuff that you may want to think about in kind of a next level sense. And so I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. I hope we made a good case for secure remote control. I hope we demonstrated how Goverlan, being an on-premise solution that's relying on Windows authentication. We actually have this all on a little slide deck here. Just the security advantages of Goverlan. Pull that up real quick just to close off on that note, because I think that that's the most important thing, is that you're using tools that you're not compromising on security with your remote management tools. So here, just a quick slide. It's an on-premise solution. There's no external points of failure. It's not like a breach at the Goverlan site is going to affect your location, or at another customer site is going to affect your location. Direct and secure connection with your clients using native Windows authentication. So if you're not a local admin on a machine, you're not getting unattended access to that machine. And there's no user password stored offsite. So again, I can tell you that some of the breaches that happened recently were as a result of something that happened at LinkedIn and copied passwords that, the same password was used in their remote control solution. And before you know it, like just something totally weird is causing hiccups for you in your environment. So, that's why, an on-premise solution with no off-site passwords is really ideal. And Goverlan gives you the functionality of a hosted solution, in that you can install this admin console on as many desktops as you want. So you can literally use Goverlan from anywhere. You sign into the console to consume a license, and you sign out or close the console to release the license. So that this way I can still use the tools from anywhere, but without having to compromise on security. With that, I'm going to open it up to questions. I see one, and that is it possible to install Goverlan on remote desktop server, RDS 2012 R2? So on the Goverlan central server portion, the system requirements are Windows Server 2008 or greater, and then the actual software can run on any Windows machine. You can publish it as an app. You can drop it in a virtual machine, literally anywhere you want. It'll run on any Windows machine. And so we'll close out with that. I want to thank you all for taking the time today. You can contact us at sales@goverlan.com. I'm Ezra. I really appreciate that you guys took the time to join today's session. If there is any questions, feel free to reach out. We'll leave the Q&A open for another moment or two. And hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Thanks so much.